Lozano, Deputy Commander, Hutto High School, AFGROTC. Today we honor those who served, past and present. During today's assemblies, we will recognize veterans from World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and Gulf War conflicts. These veterans epitomize sacrifice and service for self and paved the way for the freedoms we enjoy today. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presenting of the colors, the singing of the national anthem, and remain standing for a pledge of allegiance. Public allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. Please remain standing for the posting of the colors.
Order. Colors. Detail. Post. Colors. Order. Arms. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, choir, for that beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner. Honoring the sacrifice many have made for our country in the name of freedom and democracy is the very foundation of Veterans Day. Charles B. Runga. Though now referred to as Veterans Day, this holiday was once known as Armistice Day, a time for our nation to celebrate the victory in the war to end all wars, as proclaimed by President Woodrow Wilson. Armistice Day was officially mandated as a legal holiday in 1938. Just a few months later, the outbreak of another war in Europe shattered dreams of world peace. In the years that followed, millions of soldiers will lose their lives in the fury of World War II. Armistice Day stood as a tribute to peace that had failed, yet the failure came through no fault of the men and women serving under the country's flag, and it was these men and women who merited remembrance. Congress voted in 1954 to change the name of Armistice Day to Veterans Day. World War II had clearly not been the war to end all wars, but Veterans Day would stand as a tribute to countless individuals who had risked and even laid down their lives so that their fellow Americans might live in freedom. November 11th now serves as a time to thank living veterans for their service to the country and to remember the sacrifice of many soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and civilians who gave their lives in the service. service of the country. When you enter assembly today, you may have noticed the single table, standing alone to call your attention to its purpose. It is reserved to honor our missing comrades in arms. Set for 6, the empty place that represent American men and women still missing from each of the 5 services: United States Army, United States Marine Corps, United States Navy, United States Air Force, United States Coast Guard, and civilians. This honor ceremony symbolizes that they are here with us, here in spirit. The table cloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to the country's call to arms, so their children can remain free. Remember. The lone candle symbolizes the frailty of a prisoner learner trying to stand up against his oppressors. Remember. The yellow ribbon on the candle reminds us of those who will not be coming home. Remember. The single red rose reminds us of the loved ones and families of our comrades in arms who keep their faith awaiting for their return. Remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of the bitter fate if we do not bring them home. Remember. There's salt on the plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glasses are inverted. They cannot toast today. Maybe tomorrow. Remember. The chairs are empty. They are missing. Remember.
Detail. Present. Arms. Detail. Order. Arms. Detail. Left. Face. Detail. Forward. March.
Thank you, Honor Guard team. Today, it is my privilege to recognize an American veteran who continues to make a difference in his community. Our guest speaker today is Brigadier General Sir III, United States Air Force retired. He was a distinguished graduate of Air Force ROTC in college and commissioned in 1962. Retiring 30 years later at the rank of Brigadier General. While serving on active duty, he held 31 different jobs and was privileged to command units from squadron to division level. A Vietnam veteran, most of his career involved flying trainer, fighter, and electronic combat aircraft, including the T-38, F-4, F-111, EF-111, and F-16. Following retirement from the Air Force in 1992, he worked several high-profile jobs, including the Defense Liaison of the State of Alabama and Corporate Level Director for Lockheed Martin Corporation. In 2004, General Sir found his way to the great state of Texas, serving the community as a volunteer and supporting veterans are his highest civic priorities. He now spends most time in volunteer activities, which include chairman of Lake Travis Christmas Hope Foundation, raising funds to support wounded warrior families in the San Antonio Military Medical Center. He also volunteers at Restoration Ranch, which provides a clean therapy for veterans in Central Texas. General Sir is married to Janice Sir, and they have 4 children and 8 grandchildren in their blended family. Ladies and gentlemen, Brigadier General, Sir, the floor is yours.
Well, I thank you for that kind introduction. My mother would have been proud. And welcome to you all here today. I don't know what expectations you have of me this morning, but I'll try to live up to whatever they are. The first thing I want to do is introduce my fellow military veterans, and including Jim Chandler. Marine Corporal, retired veteran of World War II. And I'd ask Jim, I know you're able, and other veterans, please stand and be recognized. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the people that made a difference. Thank you. And Principal Christian, faculty, staff, students, thank you for inviting me here today. This is really an honor for me. I know that all the students are here voluntarily. Are you awake? Come on, you're not here voluntarily. You're here because you were asked to be here, but I'm doggone glad you are glad to be here, or happy. I'm glad you're here, because I think this will be a very worthwhile ceremony, and I would like to right now thank the AFJROTC Cadet Corps for that marvelous demonstration with the Honor Guard, the Color Guard, and how they recognized our missing and departed military members. That was fantastic. Extremely well done. Now here's what I plan to cover, and it's only going to be a few minutes, so don't panic. We'll talk about the origin of Veterans Day. You already heard a couple words from him about it, including why it's celebrated. I'll talk about the importance of World War II and the absolute necessity of having a strong military. We'll have a little bit of discussion about how you can be involved in making our nation stronger. And finally, a bit about what support veterans need after they leave the service. And before I launch into my talk, let me ask, how many of you sitting here today have family members or brothers or sisters or uncles who were in the military, who served or are serving? Raise your hands. Wow, look at that. That's amazing. I thank each and every one of them for their service. And I'll bet some of you sitting in there didn't realize how many of your fellow students have family members serving. That's absolutely outstanding. I don't care if they served 3 years or 30 years, they served our country. Veterans Day began as Armistice Day back on November 11th, 1919, honoring the first anniversary of the end of World War I, which ended exactly 1 year before, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. In 1975, President Ford renamed Armistice Day Veterans Day. There, that's the history of that. Next Monday, which is the 11th of November, we officially celebrate Veterans Day. And simply stated, it's all about honoring those who have served in the armed forces to protect this nation's freedom. It's all about military veterans. Remember, we also celebrate Memorial Day in May. What's the difference between the two? Memorial Day is specifically about remembering and honoring those who died in service to their country. We're here to celebrate Veterans Day. America's a fantastic nation, the envy of people all over the world. We were a wonderful nation from our founding days and kept getting better over the years. Great freedoms, strong economy, and a military second to none. We became the true world power during and after World War II. This is where the term greatest generation was devised. Had we not won this war, life as we know it in the United States of America would be totally different. We would not be enjoying the freedoms we enjoy today, like speech, religion, assembly, and so on. And we would likely be speaking German or Japanese. By winning World War II, we put down the evils of Nazism, imperialism, and fascism. And by the way, if those terms are not really in your mind and you don't understand them, I commend you to look them up. You will realize that they are not a good way of life. During World War II, the entire nation came together to fight the war. Men, women, children of your age. Back in those years, women weren't allowed in combat, but they played an enormous role in building ships, aircraft, and other weapons of war, and they ferried those aircraft to the war zones. The kids who were old enough went around the neighborhood collecting every bit of scrap metal just to be turned into the factories so weapons of war could be made. That's how we came together as a nation. I was a little tot about that time. I think I was about 5 years old when the war was over. But I remember my folks talking about that and how everybody pulled together. It was a national emergency, and we were fighting a war on two fronts, over in Europe and Africa, and on the other side of the world in the Far East. We won. Now, here's a pop quiz. Ha, I thought you weren't going to get away. Well, I'll try to liven it up. The faculty tells me that this is the smart group, so you ought to know the answer to this. The other day I spoke to students down at a middle school about a similar subject, and I asked a question of them. About 100 students were there, and I asked them, tell me the year that the United States joined World War II. 3 of the 100 got it right. Now, question to you is, in what year did World War II end? I hear lots of 1945s. Good on you. So we're now super strong and have become the world's policemen, so to speak. Why are we that? Well, we're the only nation capable of doing so, and we have the national resolve to protect our way of life and our citizens. And we have a strong economy needed to keep our military strong. So after World War II, our nation marched on with Korean and Vietnam conflicts, and now the Middle East fighting continues in various nations. I won't get into any political issues, but the point here is that thanks to millions of veterans and those who are serving today, America is able to do all this. Now, speaking of millions, let's take a quick look at our veteran population. For context, the entire United States population is about 330 million. In round numbers, there are 18 million living veterans in the U.S. 2 million of those are women, and over 1.5 million of that 18 million are here in Texas. So that gives you an idea of how many people we're talking about. Now, you as high school students, you may be sitting there saying to yourself, so what? How does all this apply to me? Well, think about it. You're the next generation to protect our freedoms. I'm not just talking about the military. There are many ways to support our nation, like using your talents to become a Department of Defense civilian. There are almost 1 million of those. Or working in defense industry, or perhaps working for charities that support our military and our veterans. So how do you prepare for this challenge? It takes some planning and discipline. Back in the years between 1940 and 1973, we had what was known as the draft, where we brought folks into the military whether they liked it or not. If your number was drawn, you were on your way, subject to passing physical and mental tests. Now, we have an all-volunteer force, and that setup brings with it a whole new set of challenges. Just because you may want to join the military, you must first qualify. You don't just walk up to the recruiter and say, let me in the door. Again, you must pass certain qualifying tests and measures of suitability. Let me give you what I consider a frightening statistic. Right now, in America, 71% of young adults between the ages of 17 and 24 are unfit for military service for one or more of the following reasons: criminality, obesity, or inadequate education. And that last one is super important. We need educated people in order to protect this great nation, whether it's as a civilian or as a member of the military. This is not just a military issue, but an American society issue. What you know about our country, its history, how politics work so you can vote with knowledge, why patriotism is important. These things make our nation great, and each of you can play an important role. Other ways you can be a great American is to support our veterans. You can do that by working for or otherwise supporting veteran charities and other agencies that focus on our veterans. Our veterans serve this nation proudly, but once they leave the military, they face a whole new set of challenges. Just going through the transition from a military job specialty to the civilian workforce is tough, demanding new or modified skill sets and a different mentality. Plus, many of those departing the military do so having been injured during combat, and that is an entirely different, overwhelming challenge. One of several charities I work with is totally focused on caring for the wounded warriors and their families who are at the San Antonio Military Medical Center. The wounded and injured are there for an average stay of about 2.5 years. I've made several visits there to the medical center to meet troops and to see the excellent facilities there. Believe me, the care they're getting is fantastic. I want to close by relating one visit that brought a whole new meaning to me about what's a true hero. I was down there one day with a group of people. I was working with this charity over in the Lakeway area. I take people down there each year to see the facilities and meet some of the troops. And one day we were down there going through one of the buildings, the Center for the Intrepid, where the people down there undergoing treatment and rehabilitation learn how to use their new artificial legs, arms, and learn how to walk with those new legs, walk on uneven soil, how to operate the levers and things in a car with their new hands and arms. All those things that you and I take for granted, they're taught there. Anyway, our group, we had about 8 or 9 of us on an elevator. We were going up to the 3rd floor in the Center for the Intrepid. And the doors opened on the 3rd floor, and there was a young lady standing there. She's about that tall, in uniform, with new prosthetic legs, both lower legs and arms, and with the hooks on the ends of her arms. And we greeted her and said, "Good morning," and she's got this great big smile on her face. And we said, "Well, you look like a happy lady, what's up?" And she said, "Today is the day that I learned how to put on my earrings with my new hands." And boy, that took us right back to where we lived. And we just congratulated her on success. And she gets ready to get on the elevator, and we had things like, I've got my veteran outfit on, a hat that said veteran, Vietnam veteran. And she looked at us and she said, "Thank you for your service." She tells us that. God bless that lady, but I'll tell you, that is courage. And that taught everybody that was with me the lesson they needed to learn that day about what courage is all about. Next Monday, the real Veterans Day, think about things like that. Think about Think about that, things like that table was demonstrated. And thank you once again for inviting me here today, and I hope you have a great Veterans Day.
Thank you, sir, for those words of wisdom and what it means to have courage. It is the veteran, not the preacher, who has given us freedom of religion. It is the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to assemble. It is the veteran, not the lawyer, who has given us a right to a fair trial. It is the veteran, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. Later today, there will be a flyover featuring vintage military aircraft. There will be 2 wounded warriors on board who served honorably and sacrificed their safety to afford you the freedoms you enjoy today. They are First Sergeant Steve Adams, United States Army, who was wounded while serving Operation Iraqi Freedom in Baghdad, Iraq. His patrol was hit by an IED while en route oilers. He has been on active duty since 1996 and continues to serve honorably. Also on board is Cody Rogers, Corporal, United States Marine Corps. He served with the 2nd Tank Battalion Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan, and was wounded when his tank was hit by 250-pound IED en route patrol. He served honorably from 2010 to 2014. Today we recognize some very special living heroes, our veterans of wars and conflicts, past and present, in the audience today. Guest speaker, United States Air Force Brigadier General Rick Sir, retired Vietnam War, World War II veteran, United States Marine Corps Corporal Jim Chandler, 1st Amphibious Marine Battalion. Korean War veterans, Bud Farwell, B-29 gunner, Air Force veteran, Lieutenant Fred Rule, served from 1961 to 1965. Vietnam veteran, United States Air Force Master Sergeant, retired Milton Webster. Gulf War veterans, United States Air Force Colonel James Schmer, United States Marine Corps Sergeant Major, retired A.J. Simpson. First Sergeant, active duty Steve Adams, United States Army. Corporal Cody Rogers, United States Marine Corps veteran. Hutto student, U.S. Army Second Lieutenant Christian Simpson, United States Marine Corps Lance Corporal Brandon Smith, and United States Army Aaron Walsachuk Private. Today, our active recruits represented each of our military services. They are United States Marine Corps Private First Class Brandon Smith, United States Navy Petty Officer Joseph Longoria, United States Air Force Technical Sergeant Christopher Thiedig, and United States Coast Guard represented by Cadet Omari Elliott. Our civilian corps is represented by Hutto High School Police Department Officer Cantu. Our U.S. Army representative at the ceremony is Private Marcelo Jacobs. He has completed his basic training and will graduate with the Hutto High School class of 2020. He will serve in the United States Army Reserves while attending college at University of North Dakota following graduation. Additionally, will all veterans please stand and be recognized? We'd also like to recognize all Hutto High staff members who are veterans. Now, will all students with family members serving, past and present, please stand. For the veteran, thank you for bravely doing what you're called to do so we can safely do what we're free to do so. Now, Hippo Nation, please welcome our band for a special patriotic performance of the service songs, honoring our veterans. To veterans and family members of our veterans in attendance today, please rise during the playing of your service songs and feel free to sing along. U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant retired Milton Webster will play taps. He served during the Vietnam era and retired in 1988. The horn he is playing is a 1941 pre-war and is primarily used for funerals because it is likely the same model horn played while these heroes served. Tap signifies the end of the day and is played each night on military installations around the world. The words are simple, but the meaning is profound. Day is gone. Gone is the sun. From the lake, from the hill, from the sky. All is well. Safely rest. Let us night. Thanks and praise for our days. Neath the sun. Neath the stars. Neath the stars. As we go, this we know. God is night. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for playing taps.
Okay, first we want to thank all of our people who came out today. Dr. Selena Straw Thompson, our superintendent, for coming out today and being here with us. My boss. Our choir, Ms. Kokas and the choir did a great job. Thank you very much for what they did for Mr. Gist, Mr. Harrison, Mr. Rush, and our band did a wonderful job, so thank you very much for coming out. Who came out to join us today. Thank you very much for being a part of this really great assembly today. Then get around. For our ROTC, Major Courageous, Chief Collins, Sergeant Ortiz, our whole Corps of Cadets, and Cadet Julian Lozano. Y'all did a great job on this whole assembly. Thank you very much for all the work that you did. I want to recognize two people. I forgot they were going to be here. Two Hutto High graduates that I just saw today. Private Brendan Smith, who was a graduate.